Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for Below Grade Level. Tell your parents you're going to a sleepover.
You can always count on me, and I can count on you. Good times, bad times in between, my friends will see me through. We'll be sharing wonderful times every day. All together singing our song, growing in every way. Say hello to your friends. Babysitters Club. Say hello to the people who...
Hello and welcome to Below Grade Level, the show where we take the books that we read as children and read them as adults and ruin them. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Eaton. With me as always is Bekah Eaton.
Hello.
And Chris Zaleski.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Bye.
Great, good. Same as always.
Yeah.
Today, we have a very special guest on the show. If you listen to some of our other shows, you might have heard her talk to me and Bekah about Robin Hood, both Prince of Thieves and Men in Tights. But it's our friend from across the pond, Ruth Bartlett.
Why, hello there.
How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm just drinking a nice cup of tea.
So British. Although it is like, it's tea time there, right?
It is. It's 4. We should be doing scones.
I thought they were called scones.
I heard that like power plants need to generate more power around 4 because of all the electric
Well,
kettles.
My kettle's going all day, so I don't know about 4, but it literally doesn't stop. I've actually got a drip in my arm, and it's attached to the kettle.
Every British child is intravenously installed with a tea drip. Chris, I legit can't tell if that's a joke you made up or if that's like a real fact.
Yeah, it's like a real thing.
No, it's probably very true.
That's crazy. That's awesome. So yay, thanks for being on the show, Ruth. You have never read a Babysitters Club book, right?
I don't think so. It's like maybe something very similar to this. In England, we did have, I'm sure, this series, but I feel like I have read something similar, but not this. But
So what kind of books did you read when you were, I guess this was for around middle school aged
Like
girls?
yeah, like tweens,
Yeah.
like 11 through.
oh well, it was the point
13.
horror and point romance. They were the big, I'd have do you remember those ones? The point horror and point romance.
I haven't heard
ones?
of
No,
that.
I have not heard of that
So
either.
like R.L. Stein and different authors, and it would take you on like a horror adventure or a romantic adventure. Yeah, they were really good. And
We're
then there was
familiar with R.L. Stein for sure.
Yes, yeah. So a lot of he did a lot of the horror.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there was the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Okay.
Yes, back in the day. But yeah, I know of these books. I do, and I'm just not sure I've read any of them, so I can't. I'm going in blind here.
Well,
so
I was going to say, you haven't read them at least for quite a long time.
yeah.
Because most of us haven't, except for us who have been doing this podcast for a while. So we've been reading a lot of these children's books
Yeah.
the last couple of years. Oh my God. Dusty.
Well, I
just
hope I
jumped in
do my
lap.
part justice.
Oh, I'm sure. So yeah, last time we were reading Claudia and the Phantom Phone Calls, the second Babysitters Club book. And last time, just to catch you up on the plot, of which there is not much, Claudia hates doing homework so much. I think the entire first chapter was just about how bad she is at doing homework.
Yeah, and how her whole family has to tutor her,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And she's like a dumb, smart kid.
And like her whole family has to take turns tutoring her
She
because
just
they
needs
get
to apply herself.
Yeah, maybe she will at the end of this book. I bet she will. She is obsessed. She has a giant crush on a boy named Trevor Sanborn, so she's really into Trevor. There's a lot to talk about Trevor. Dusty, Christ, lay down. There's a cat in my lap. He's being obnoxious. There is a phantom phone caller on the loose, and by that we mean that there's a person who like phone calls homes to see if the parents are there, and then if they're not there, comes and robs them.
Yeah.
So doesn't seem like a great business venture for a burglar, but I guess you could do worse. And then the babysitters had an emergency meeting once they heard about the phantom phone caller to decide what to do if they are babysitting and they get phantom phone called. And there was a lot of bad. That was probably the funniest part because they literally they could not get on the same page about it.
Yeah.
Well,
and there was a lot of yelling. Like
I thought the funniest part about it was like they were all hanging out on one of their front lawns, and they were like, "We need an emergency meeting. Not here. We need to do it at our headquarters." That's like you're all already in the same place.
Yeah. No, they had to go to Claudia's room. The headquarters.
Because she has her own phone line.
Oh, and I think the last time we read, I think there's something about a dance. Maybe isn't there like a sock hop?
I doubt it would be called a sock hop.
The Halloween hop.
This isn't Grease.
Or the yeah. Oh.
So this
I
is
thought you meant
timely
Grease, like
because
the
it's around
country.
Halloween time.
Oh, it is timely. Yeah. They aren't Greek children.
Nor are they from the movie Grease, which was my point.
So I'll go ahead and start us off. We are starting with chapter 5 of Claudia the Phantom Phone Calls. Who the fuck is Jamie Newton?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Hi. Oh, wait. I kind of remember this
a
kid.
nerd
No,
person?
it's a child. I think I remember this from the first book. And he's like, hi. Like, that's all he said or something. Hi. Jamie Newton flung open his front door and greeted me happily. Jamie is 3 years old. Christy and I are his favorite babysitters. Jamie is always glad to see us. Hi, I said. Are you ready to play? Claudia is Riff Raff from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Yep. Mrs. Newton appeared in the doorway behind Jamie. Hello, Claudia, she said. You're right on time. She held the door.
Oh,
Favorite people in the whole world. She never asks me about school. Thank God, because I would never be able to tell her anything because I don't pay attention. But she always asks me about my art and tells me she likes what I'm wearing because those are the only two things I care about. Mrs. Newton is pregnant. Jamie is going to have a little brother or sister soon, very soon. Mrs. Newton is so big, she looks as if she should fall over forward instead of standing upright.
Jesus.
Oh, Claudia, she said, what wonderful barrettes. Where did you get them? My barrettes were teddy bears with streamers attached. At the merry-go-round, I replied, $3.75. Maybe I'll get a pair. Not for me, of course. For the baby. The baby. I'm sort of hoping for a GIRL. I smiled, but I was confused because I didn't know how to read. I have to spell that, she added, because Jamie wants a BOY. How are your art classes? What are you working on now?
Is Jamie like 2 years old? Because I'm pretty sure if
3.
he was a toddler. Oh, 3? Okay. I think you should be able to spell boy by then.
Probably.
Am I reading both sides?
Yeah.
Just the ones. Okay.
Both sides.
2 oil paintings. We just started using oils. I'm doing a portrait of Mimi and a still life. What's in the still life? An egg, a checkered napkin, a wooden spoon, and a pitcher. An egg? That must be difficult. Yeah, it is, but I like working on it.
Oh, boy.
Mrs. Newton checked her watch. I better get going, she said. I'll be at the doctor's first for a quick checkup, then I just have to stop in the post office and the grocery store. I'll be home by 5 o'clock, maybe a bit earlier. You know where the phone numbers are. Sure, I said. Jamie and I are going to have fun. Want to play outside, Jamie? It was a gray, dreary day, but it wasn't raining. Yeah! I was glad he did because I was just a little afraid of the phantom caller. I knew he usually struck after dark, and I knew he hasn't robbed anyone in Stony Brook yet, but I was still scared. Mrs. Newton left, and I put Jamie's jacket on him. We went into the backyard. The Newtons' yard is really good for little kids to play in. There's a slide and a swing set and a jungle gym, and the yard is completely surrounded by a tall stockade fence.
What is that?
Covered in barbed wire. I don't know.
Frontier fort?
to keep out the Indians.
Yeah. God. I pushed Jamie on the swing for a while. Then he jumped off and ran to the jungle gym to show me a trick he'd learned. I was facing the house watching him when I saw something that nearly made me jump out of my skin. A light came on downstairs in the Newtons' house. It lit up the living room, but it didn't look like a living room light. Maybe it was in the front hall. A chill ran up my spine. I looked at my watch. 4 o'clock. Mrs. Newton should have been with the doctor right then. Besides, if she'd come back, I would have heard her car pull up and the door slam.
As I stared at the house, the light went off. I gasped. Maybe it was some kind of illusion, like a street lamp. But why would a street lamp turn on and then go off? Also, it was daytime. I decided to ignore the light. Jamie stood up on the bottom of his slide. Hey, guess who I am? He yelled. He beat his chest and cried, ah, 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 ah. Oh, that's horrible.
What?
Peter
What?
Rabbit, I said. Jamie laughed. No, Superman. No, not Tarzan, I said. Yes, I'm Tarzan. At that moment, the phone began to ring. I looked at the house. Dun, dun, dun. I hear the telephone, said Jamie. Maybe it's Daddy.
Or a phantom.
I'd been hoping he wouldn't hear it. I hadn't planned to answer it. Jamie ran for the house. Come on, he said. I knew I should answer the phone. As a babysitter, that was one of my responsibilities. But I was too afraid. I stooped down. Just a second, I called. My shoes untied.
She's gonna
I
let the
took
kid
long-
run ahead of her.
Yeah, she's
Fucked out.
horrible
Yeah.
at everything she does.
Well, answering a phone call is number one on the babysitter responsibility, and keeping a child alive is under that.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as the phone gets answered first. But she's doing terrible at both of those. I took long enough untying and retying my sneakers so
Oh my
that by
God.
the time I caught up with Jamie at the back door, the phone was no longer ringing. I'm sorry, Jamie, I said. Look, if it was your dad, he'll call back. Okay, Jamie didn't seem too upset. He sat down on the patio.
The patio? The patio?
The patio. And
Ooh, I
began
like the
playing with a
patio
dump
though.
truck.
That makes it sound like it's like Italian.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep. Hey, what was that? He asked, holding still. What was that? That noise. What noise? Pat, pat, pat.
That noise. I heard it too. Footsteps on the driveway on the other side of the stockade fence. What's a stockade again?
I don't know. Becca's looking
Think
at
about
that.
the pointy logs, like all next to each other.
Oh, with all the spikes on the top. Okay.
With like severed heads.
Walking Dead style.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid to take Jamie into the house, but the only way to leave the Newtons' yard was through the gate in the fence, and the gate opened onto the driveway. Maybe it was the paper boy, I suggested. Jamie shook his head. The paper boy doesn't come up to our house. He stands in the street and throws the paper into the flower garden.
Oh, so it's just a fence.
It's just a tall fence.
A stockade fence is literally just a fence.
And I guess all the boards are really close to each other, so you can't see through it at all.
Okay.
It's really tall.
It's weird. It's called a fence.
Well, there's different types of fences.
It was the 80s.
Pat. Hey, I whispered. Let's be spies. Let's sneak up to the fence and peek through the knot hole by the gate. Okay, Jamie whispered back. I took Jamie's hand and we tiptoed across the grass to the gate. Very cautiously, I closed one eye and put the other one up to the hole. A brown eye was looking back at me. I screamed! Jamie screamed! The person attached to the brown eye screamed.
Hopefully not out of
Oh,
her
that's a
brown
lot
eye.
of screaming.
There's so much screaming.
The last scream sounded awfully familiar. Christy? I said. Claudia. Claudia. The gate opened and Christy came in, trembling. What were you doing? I shouted. Trying to find you, she said. Hi, Jamie. Hi. I thought you were the PC, I said, nodding towards Jamie. Sorry, Mom got home from work early today, so I'm off the hook with David Michael. Christy and her older brothers each have to take care of their littlest brother, David Michael, one afternoon a week, while Mrs. Thomas is at work. A babysitter comes on the other days. I knew you were babysitting here, she said. Or she went on. Shall I carry on?
Mom sent me over with something from Mrs. Newton, and I wanted to see how you were doing. I was sort of worried about the PC myself. Did you turn on a light in the Newtons' house? Christy nodded. Oh yeah, I forgot to do Christy's voice. Mom made a casserole for the Newton since Mrs. Newton doesn't feel much like cooking anymore. Lazy bitch. I had to put on a light so she wouldn't trip with it on my way, so I wouldn't trip with it on my way to the refrigerator. Oh God, it's happening to my brain.
The same thing that always happens, Pinky.
Then I went back outside to look for you guys. I guess that wasn't you on the phone then, I said. Christy's eyes opened wide. The phone rang just a couple of minutes ago while you were walking around looking for us. Did you answer it? No, we missed it. I bet it was Daddy, said Jamie. Christy and I exchanged knowing looks. Their father would never call.
Where is the father
I don't know.
of this pregnant?
He left for cigarettes years ago, and
I wanted to make that joke earlier, but
do you want me to stay for a while? Asked Christy. Yes, said Jamie and I, for different reasons. Christy can be a blabbermouth and a baby.
and a Nazi.
Jesus.
But she can also be a very good friend. But also those other things that I like to,
Those other mean things.
those other names I like to call her.
Also, a 3-year-old wouldn't say "I bet."
How do you know? You might have picked it up.
I've met a few.
Chapter 6. That night, Janine helped me with my homework. She is picky, picky, picky. I bet teachers wouldn't even notice half the things she makes me correct. I bet they would. We were just finishing up when a great crash of thunder sounded. Perfect. Gosh, it's late in the season for thunderstorms, Janine remarked. Oh, but I love them, I said. They make me feel all shivery. Janine, remember when we were little and we'd crawl under Mom and Dad's bed during thunderstorms? We'd pretend we were camping, but we were really just hiding. Yeah, I said fondly. Very interesting psychologically, said Janine. The fear process. Janine, what? Shut up. Janine glared at me, then stalked out of the room. I knew Mimi had said I would have to work at being Janine's friend, and she was right. It would take a lot of work. How did Janine get the fear process out of something as nice as autumn thunderstorms? Even so, I resolved not to give up so easily the next time we talked. I flicked on the radio and turned it to the local station. I listened to it while I worked on my still life. Maybe the weather report would mention something about the thunderstorm.
I dabbed away at the gray area under the egg. It's hard to figure out what shape, shadow, an egg will cast. The music came to an end, and I perked up my ears. At the top of the news, said the radio newscaster suddenly, is a local story. The thief dubbed the Phantom Caller has been spotted in a stolen car traveling south through New Jersey. State troopers are tailing him. Details on the hour. All right, I cried. He's gone. I was so excited that I turned off the radio, snatched up the phone, and called Stacy. Guess what? Guess what? I cried. Wait, what voice was Stacy?
I don't remember.
Was it Jenna?
Yes.
Okay. What? Said Stacy excitedly. Wait, Trevor called you, right? I knew he would. I knew it. Oh, Claude, did he ask? Stacy, I said. That's not it. I felt like a deflated balloon. Like this voice. He didn't call. It's something else. Unfortunately, the something else wasn't as exciting as Trevor. Oh, said Stacy. The Phantom Caller's gone. I just heard it on the radio. You're kidding. Nope. Heading south through New Jersey, away from us. The police are after him. Oh, I hope they catch him. Well, even if they don't, he's out of our hair. We can forget about the phantom collar for good. A little while later, I hung up the phone. Then I called Christy to tell her the news. And then I called Marianne. Boy, were we relieved that they didn't write out those conversations. The next evening, I had a sitting job for 2 little girls, Nina and Eleanor Marshall. On school nights, I'm allowed to babysit until 9:30. The deal with my homework is that it must get done in the afternoon. I worked on it with my mother. At 7:30 that night, I was in the Marshall's kitchen pouring a glass of milk for Nina, who's 3. Eleanor, who's just a year old, was already in bed. The radio was playing in the background.
Nina was watching TV in the den. Then, just like the night before, a song ended, and the announcer began the evening news with a piece about the phantom caller. Oh, good. I thought, they've captured him. But I was wrong. Very wrong. The man thought to be the phantom caller, said the newscaster, has been captured and is not the phantom caller. The phantom caller is still at large. Still at large? What a horrible way to phrase that. It sounded as if he might be anywhere. Maybe it's the Marshall's backyard, or maybe in the Marshall's backyard, or peering through the kitchen window.
I feel like that newscaster pulled a Pert Hapley and was like, we've captured the phantom caller is not what I will say tonight.
Yeah.
I turned off the radio. Then I dared to look around to see whether the phantom caller was at the window. All I could see was the kitchen lights reflected in the glass. I put the carton of milk in the refrigerator and picked up the glass. Nina, I called, where's your milk? Oh, here's your milk. Yeah, sorry.
My hand.
I've been blind for a second, sorry.
Well, it's only natural some things will get lost in the translation.
She scurried into the kitchen just as the phone rang. I want to talk, she said. I was trembling, but I tried not to let Nina know. Only if it's your mum, I told her. I picked her up and lifted the receiver, dreading the voice I might hear, hoping it really was Mrs. Marshall, just calling to check on things. Hello? I said lightly, for Mrs. Marshall's benefit. Silence. Hello? Hello? More silence. Then a click as the caller hung up. Oh my gosh, the phantom caller was in Stony Brook. I just knew it. I wondered if I should call Stacey and give her our coded message.
Oh my God.
What was I supposed to ask about? Barrettes? Ribbons? Claudia?
See, the codes were too complicated.
They really
At least
were.
they're acknowledging it.
She already can't remember what it was supposed to be. They literally they had this huge meeting where they were arguing about what it was, and while they were trying to figure it out, they all kept forgetting. I think except for Christy.
Yeah.
Christy was the angry one that was like, "It's this."
Oh dear.
I jumped a mile as Nina asked, "Who is it?" "Wrong number," I said. I hung up the phone, put her down, and handed her the milk. "Well, let's go watch TV," I suggested. "I can't anymore." "Why not?" "Because my show is over. I have to go to bed." Nina was getting a milk mustache. "So soon?" "That's my bedtime after the show." Wow, what a well-behaved child.
I know, right?
What the hell?
Claudia's like, no, protect me.
Yeah, I would be like, it's time to watch porn.
And then me as a child would be like, I'm staying awake forever.
Yeah, I am never gonna sleep. I was also Fred Schneider as a child.
I believe that.
I knew what her bedtime was, but maybe just once she could stay up a little longer.
She
You're right.
wants to use every kid as a human shield.
Absolutely.
If I throw the kid at the burglar, I'll get away.
How about a special treat? I said excitedly. You can stay up until 8 o'clock. But Mommy and Daddy don't let me. That's the rule. This goddamn kid.
Too
What was I
good.
doing anyway? Trying to convince a 3-year-old to keep me company? Pfft, they're no good at conversation. Okay, then. Upstairs we go. Nina handed me her empty glass. I put it in the sink and we climbed the stairs. I turned on every light I could possibly find. I wondered what kind of jewelry Mrs. Marshall had. Maybe I should steal it. After Nina was in bed, I tiptoed to Eleanor's room to check on her. I stood in the doorway and let the light from the hall shine into her bedroom. I stared at her crib. It looked empty. Oh my gosh, maybe the phantom caller was in the Marshall's house somewhere and he'd taken Eleanor. I can't say Eleanor. I can only say Eleanor because I think of The Good Place.
Yep.
Oh. Are they different names? Eleanor
No,
and
it's the
Eleanor?
same name.
No, it's the
just
same name.
pronunciation.
It's OR, but I'm doing like the New York thing, like Eleanor.
I thought that was how you say it. I don't know.
I don't know.
Are there people who say Eleanor?
Yeah, I feel like that's the way I've always heard it until Ted Danson.
National
I don't know.
treasure.
I just don't know.
National treasure, Ted Danson.
I stand with Ted Danson.
I'm going to make those pins. Stand with Ted Danson. I dashed over to her crib. Oh, there she was, all bunched into a corner.
Oh, there she was.
He thought he stole a baby.
Yeah, she thought he stole a baby. Maybe he wants babies. I straightened her out. I straightened her out and covered her up again. I stretched out the baby. She was all crammed into a corner, and I stretched her. I pulled all her arms and
Blankets are
legs
bad. What about SIDS?
into a starfish. Eleanor.
Eleanor.
Eleanor. Oh God.
Leonore.
From Krypton, sighed in her sleep. I sighed too. The house sighed. I turned off the upstairs lights and went back down to the den. I turned the TV on. Then I turned it off. If the TV was on, the phantom caller could sneak up on me too easily. I sat in silence and I flipped through a magazine. Crick, crick, crick. Claudia's losing her mind.
She really is.
Also, wouldn't the TV on like denote like, hey, someone's here?
Yeah.
Like, don't rob it.
I thought he only robbed the places if they were empty.
Yeah.
Or that's what I would assume.
Like my house in the city. We leave the TV on because no one's there.
Yeah. What was that? Just the Marshall's cat settling down on a pile of newspapers. Plink, plink. What was that?
Oh my God.
Water dripping in the sink. All the little noises were driving me crazy. I put the TV back on. I tried to watch it, but my gaze kept traveling to the dark windows that faced the backyard. Finally, I couldn't stand it any longer. I shut the curtains. Then I decided to call Stacy. Claudia, Stacy exclaimed when she got on the phone. Have you been listening to the news? Yes, I said. What do you think? I was just going to call you because I know you're babysitting. I don't know what to think. Oh, it's so spooky here. Every little noise makes me jump. And you know what? The phone rang a while ago and the caller didn't say a word. He just hung up. Oh, but you're not asking about your hair ribbon, Stacy said cautiously. No, I replied, not yet. Do you want me to come over? I do, but I don't want the Marshalls to come home and find you here with me. I don't want them to think I can't handle a simple job by myself. Well, do you want to stay on the phone a little while? Yes, that would be great. So what's going on with Trevor, right? Let's talk about boys for a while.
Ew.
So what's going on with Trevor? Asked Stacy. Oh, the usual. Nothing? Yeah. Sick burn, Stacy. Yeah, I wonder if he even knows about the Halloween hop. You're right, there is hop in the name.
I knew it was a hop.
The Halloween hop. Poets are sometimes off in their own worlds. I forgot he was what are they in
12.
High school or middle school?
Oh, they're middle school.
Oh, he's a middle school poet.
He's a middle school poet.
Maybe he hasn't heard the announcements in school.
So dreamy.
Oh, I bet he has, said Stacy. How could anyone miss them? She put her hand over the receiver to disguise her voice and did a pretty good imitation of Mr. Taylor talking on the intercom.
Stacy, where'd you go?
know, children, Halloween falls on October 31st this year.
I giggled. Mr. Taylor is so dumb. He thinks I broke off. Claudia? Asked Stacy. Shh. I held the phone away from my ear and listened intently. I definitely heard footsteps in the garage. Stacy, Stacy, I said urgently, have you found my... did you see my... Have you found my... Your red ribbon? Yes, I gasped. Yes, I did. No.
Oh my
I
God.
found... Did you find my blue...
You guys
Oh
are so
no,
dumb.
Stacy. Someone's at the garage door. I can hear the knob rattling.
Your fucking plan fell apart immediately.
I'm going to call the police. Claudia, called the deep voice. It was all I could do not to shriek. He called my name, I yelped to Stacy. Claudia, said the voice again. We've misplaced the house keys. Can you let us in, please? I let my breath out in one long shaking sigh. It's the marshals, Stace, I whispered. Gotta go. I'll call you when I get home. I ran to the back door, unlocked it, and flung it open. I have never, ever in my whole life been so glad to see anybody. Hi, Claudia, said Mrs. Marshall. Mr. Marshall was standing behind her, patting his pockets and muttering, I can't figure out where those darn keys went. I held the door open for them. Sorry for the confusion, Mrs. Marshall. Oh, shit. Wrong
How
voice.
did they dress
Sorry
that
for the
up?
confusion.
That's what I was wondering. Like, are your house keys and car keys separate, like a lunatic?
They're probably drunk. Mrs. Marshall went on. The house keys may be at Mr. Marshall's office. Here, dear, use mine, said Mrs. Marshall to her husband. So she had them the whole
If
time.
she had them, why did you... Oh, my God.
She took a ring of keys from
They're
a peg
dead.
in
They're
the back
soused.
hall and...
Oh,
Next
sorry.
page, please.
That's me. Next page, please.
handed it to him.
Yeah, Chris, just do this whole page and then...
Then she turned to me. How are the girls tonight? Oh, just fine, I said. Nina went to bed as soon as her show was over. Good. No problems then? None at all. I was still shaking. Mrs. Marshall began rummaging through her purse for money. A few minutes later, as Mr. Marshall was opening the door to walk me home, the phone rang. Again. I heard Mrs. Marshall pick it up and say hello. Then I heard her hang up saying, That's strange. I shivered. It was strange, all right.
Shit.
Da, da, da.
Okay, so chapter 7. Thursday, October 23rd. This evening, I babysat at Watson's. It's hard to believe Watson will become my stepfather next year. Ah, well.
This is...
This is from
Yeah,
Christy's point
I was
of
gonna
view.
say that's confusing because I thought this would have been Claudia, but so this is Christy writing in the her
Oh,
diary
yeah,
or
the diary.
possibly
They have a notebook
Oh.
that they write about their babysitting experiences in.
Yeah.
So the book will be narrated by one of the girls, but they'll have random passages that are from their
All of them.
logbook.
Okay.
Basically,
So
for
this
the
is-
other girls.
yeah, this is Christy's entry in the babysitter's log. Start date.
Okay. As I promised the rest of the club members last Saturday, I've been bringing our club record book to school every day so each of us can check the appointments and see where the others will be babysitting. After tonight, I was not sure that's a good idea. See, Karen, Watson's 5-year-old daughter, was so nervous about the woman next door who she thinks is a witch that she was making me nervous.
Forgot about
Then,
Me too.
just when I was about the most scared I've ever been, bless you,
Thank
the
you.
phone
more.
started ringing and ringing
Bless.
and ringing.
Thank you.
Those damn cats.
Oh my God, it's damn allergies.
Poor Christy. I'm glad she and Watson, her mother's boyfriend, finally get along better. But I guess it is a little frightening to sit at his house. I've never done it, but Mary Ann has. She was spooked too. And then, and that was a while ago, before we knew anything about the phantom caller. For starters, Watson House is huge, practically a mansion. The house next door, which is also huge, is gloomy and rambling, with turrets and towers and dark windows everywhere.
Cool.
Yeah, is it free? Can we move in?
Yeah.
If that weren't bad enough, little Karen is convinced that Mrs. Porter, who lives there, it's not empty, obviously, is a witch named, oh God, here we go.
Oh boy.
Morbida?
Yeah, I forgot about
Morbida
this.
Destiny?
Which name? Morbida Destiny.
Morbida Destiny, who has put spells on Boo Boo, Watson's fat cat. On the night Christy was babysitting, Karen had a new twist on the fears about Mrs. Potter. Christy arrived at Watson's at 7. She can't babysit very late on weeknights, but Watson was only going to parents' night at Karen's private school, so he was going to be home early.
Usually his kids, Karen and Andrew, don't stay with him during the week, but since his ex-wife had broken her ankle, Watson was taking them more often than usual. Hi, Christy, Karen cried when Mrs. Thomas dropped Christy off at Watson's. Hi, added Andrew happily. Andrew is 3. Andrew and Karen like Christy so much that not long ago, Christy promised them she'd be their main babysitter at Watson's until she became their stepsister. And then no more, ever again. Watson walked into the front hall. Well, Christy, I don't remember what voice we did for Watson. He said warmly, I'm so glad you could come. Christy knew that Watson was really just glad she wasn't such a pill about him and her mother anymore. Christy was a real bitch in the last book, like really pissed off that her mom was getting some. I don't think you'll have any trouble tonight. Christy smiled at Watson as Boo Boo wandered into the hall. I know one way to avoid trouble, she said. We'll keep Boo Boo inside. She turned to Karen and grinned at her, but Karen stared back solemnly. Uh-oh, thought Christy. Something's wrong. All right, said Watson. The emergency numbers are in the usual place, and the phone number of Karen's school plus her classroom number, what? Are taped to the phone. Just in case.
Do
Christy,
classrooms have phones?
like separate lines?
No, it's probably just the number of the classroom.
Okay. Christy nodded. 7:30 is bedtime for Andrew, Watson went on, and 8 o'clock for Karen. That seems arbitrary. Like a half hour's difference.
Yeah.
Like just put them to bed at the
Watson
same
should
time.
be Kermit the Frog because in the show he was great.
7:30 is bedtime for
Wait,
Andrew.
Why? What does that have to do with Kermit?
Because
Yeah,
Kermit's great.
Okay.
Just
And the
because
voice
Kermit's
he was
great.
doing was a little
Solid
bit
logic.
Kermity.
I was pseudo Kermit. I'll try to do more Kermit. And 8 o'clock for Karen. By the way, there's peppermint stick ice cream in the freezer, and I don't believe Andrew and Karen have had dessert yet. Ah!
Was he flailing?
Yeah. Ah! Yay, ice cream, cried Andrew, jumping up and down. Karen continued to look solemn. Christy began to feel suspicious and a little nervous. These girls have like super anxiety right now.
Yeah, they really do.
They're all, on edge. Watson shrugged
Oh, there's a phantom caller.
into his coat. Goodbye, pumpkin, he said. I don't know how to do Kermit. Kissing the top
You're doing
of
pretty
Karen's
good,
head.
I think.
Goodbye, Andy.
You just gotta do
Can't
the
wait to
same
hear
voice,
Becca's
Jonathan, but
Kermit.
just like soften it a little.
Soften it. Have you
Yeah.
heard me?
Okay.
Everything's fine.
Okay.
Like, why are there so many songs about rainbows?
Okay. That's enough.
He left quickly, calling over his shoulder. I'll be home before 9, Christy. Thanks again.
See, Becca got it.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Flawless Kermit. Frank Oz, is he here?
There's Jim Henson.
What?
Frank Oz did
Frank Oz did
Kermit's
Kermit.
voice.
No,
Right?
he didn't.
What?
Frank Oz did Miss Piggy.
Someone Google it. I'm pretty sure he
I'm
did.
Googling
Kermit.
it. I am positive Frank Oz did Kermit.
It was Jim Henson, then his son, then some new guy.
You're some guy.
Christy glanced warily at Andrew and Karen. This was the moment when even the most babysat for children sometimes burst into tears. Jamie Newton, for instance, absolutely hated for his parents to leave him just before bedtime. But Andrew was already on his way into the kitchen after the ice cream. Karen apparently had other things on her mind. What's the matter? Christy finally asked her, taking her hand.
Son of a bitch, Chris is right.
What, really?
Jim
Why
Henson,
wouldn't I be?
I always thought it was
Because I
Frank
didn't want you
Oz.
to- yeah.
Because I didn't want you to be.
Okay, sorry, go on.
She really didn't want to know, yet it was her job to know. Morbid at destiny, whispered Karen. What about her? Christy whispered back, a little shivery tickle running up her spine. She remembered how strange Marianne said Boo Boo had acted the day she was babysitting, when Mrs. Porter had chased him out of the garden with a rake. Christy, ice cream, called Andrew from the kitchen. Just a sec, Andrew. More spells, whispered Karen urgently. Really? Asked Christy, trying to sound unconcerned. Boo Boo looks all right. Not Boo Boo, me, said Karen. Children are
They
terrifying.
really are. Jesus.
She closed her eyes dramatically. You, exclaimed Christy. What's she done to you?
This kid's the Phantom Caller.
Given me freckles. Karen, said Christy, hiding a smile. You already had freckles. You've had freckles since you were 2 years old. I've seen pictures. She's given me more. Sometimes they spread.
Holy shit.
Karen shook her head.
My favorite part of the book.
Christy, I know, I finally get a good page.
Yeah.
Christy, called Andrew, sounding impatient. Coming. Karen, I really don't think you need to worry. Let's go have some ice cream with Andrew, okay?
Okay, but I'm warning you. If she squints her eyes and holds one hand in the air, she's putting a spell on you. I'll be on the alert, Christy said. They walked into the kitchen and found pink ice cream dripping all over the table and onto the floor. 3 bowls and 3 spoons were sitting stickily in the middle of the mess. Andrew, cried Christy. I helped, he said proudly. I let Boo Boo out too.
Oh my God.
Christy turned pale. You let Boo Boo out? Andrew, I guess he wasn't paying attention, said Karen quickly. Christy calmed down. I guess not. Andrew, thank you very much for helping. But from now on, maybe you should tell me before you help with Boo Boo, okay? Sometimes we don't let him outside. Andrew's face fell, his bottom lip trembling. But, Christy rushed on, you did a good job with the ice cream.
No, we
Thank you.
didn't.
Let's just wipe up the drips and then we can eat. Christy, Karen, and Andrew finished their ice cream. Then Christy put Andrew to bed and helped Karen change into her pajamas. Let's read stories until my bedtime, Karen suggested. Okay, said Christy. You choose. Karen searched through the shelf in her room, then sat down on her bed. Christy sat down next to her. Karen handed her a book. What's this? Exclaimed Christy. The Witch Next Door? Where did this come from? It just appeared, said Karen mysteriously.
What?
Christy looked at her suspiciously. Are you sure? Well, it appeared from inside Daddy's briefcase. He bought it for me. So he's to blame for all this superstition.
He's the Phantom Phone Caller.
Aha, said Christy. Listen, tonight we're going to read something funny. She took a fat book from the shelf. Has your daddy read this to you? Karen shook her head. It's too long. Not if you read it a little at a time.
Anna Karenina.
That's what we're going to do. Every time I babysit, we'll read some more. Okay, agreed Karen. She settled herself against her pillow. Now, said Christy, this story is all about a girl exactly your age whose name is Ramona Quimby?
Quimby?
Oh,
I remember
that's a big
those.
book.
What's Ramona Quimby?
Ramona
Quimby?
Quimby?
Yeah.
It was just other books around this time.
Oh, so just like another kid's book? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
that's cute.
small. I don't know why she said it was a big book. I mean, it can't be any bigger than a Babysitter's Club book.
Maybe she's as bad at reading as I am.
Yeah.
Like 100 pages. Oh, my God.
Oh no.
Struggling to read a page, it's like.
Oh, don't worry, I struggle constantly.
Goody, said Karen. I like that name. Christy began to read. Half an hour later, Karen was asleep. Christy tiptoed downstairs. As soon as she reached the kitchen, the phone rang. Christy practically jumped out of her skin. The caller was Mary Ann. Just checking, she said. I wanted to see how you're doing. Fine, Christy replied. Karen and Andrew are in bed, but Karen thinks Mrs. Potter has put a freckle spell on her. Christy giggled nervously. You know, said Mary Ann, I'd be able to laugh too if only Mrs. Potter didn't look so much like a witch. Well, yes. I mean, she goes flapping around her yard in those horrible black robes, like she's kind of overgrown bat. Mary Ann, stop.
Got that cauldron.
Okay, I'm sorry. Look, I'm not
Broomsticks.
supposed to be on the phone at all. I had to tell Dad this was a homework emergency. I'm glad everything's okay. Thanks. Lock up tight. What? The windows, the doors, lock them. Lock everything, just in case. Ah, all right.
Christy, Marianne hung up, and Christy started walking through Watson's huge, silent house. All the windows seemed to be locked, but Christy checked each one anyway. The only problem was that there were so many of them, and the locks on some were hard to reach. Christy was perched precariously on top of a stepladder in the library when the phone rang again.
The library?
In the library. Christy stumbled down the ladder. She reached for the phone on the big leather desk. Leather? Then she drew...
He's rich.
I know. Then she drew her hand back, afraid. After 3 rings, she told herself it was probably just Marianne calling back, even though she knew that was unlikely. Mr. Spear is so strict about letting his daughter talk on the phone after dinner. Hello, said Christy timidly. Hello? She thought she could hear light breathing on the other end of the phone. Hello? Nothing. Christy dropped the receiver into the cradle as if it were burning her hand. She ran from the library. She knew she couldn't check the upstairs windows. She knew she should check the upstairs windows, but she was afraid to. She was too afraid. Oh my God. I can't read either. I just know the phantom caller is going to sneak onto the 2nd floor, she told herself. He's probably leaning a ladder against the outside of the house at this very moment. Ring! The phone rang again. Ring! Ring! At last, Christy reached for it. She knew she had to answer it. After all, it was the #1 babysitter rule. The caller could be Watson or her mother. She picked up the receiver and held it to her ear, but she couldn't get any words out. Christy? Asked the caller. Oh, Christy? Asked the caller. Claudia? She whispered back. The caller was me.
What?
Because it's Claudia's book.
Okay.
It literally says in parentheses, the caller was me.
That's clever.
What's wrong? I asked her. I just got one of those calls. Oh. And Watson's house is so huge and scary. Put on lots of lights, I suggested.
Yeah, why aren't they already locking the doors and windows as like a common practice?
The 80s, I guess. Still did that.
That's crazy.
What do you think the calls mean? Christy asked. She couldn't stop thinking about them. I knew just how she felt. Well, I said, they could be wrong numbers. People are pretty rude when they reach the wrong person. They usually just hang up. That's not true.
Yeah.
Or they could be little kids making goof calls.
Goof calls?
Goof calls. I guess, said Christy. In case there's any trouble, do you remember our code? No. Christy, you're the one who made us rehearse. Where's your sheet with the code words? At home, I didn't know how it would feel to be so nervous. I can't even remember my last name. It's Thomas. Thanks a lot. Christy, you're the babysitter. You're in charge. You better act like it. Silence. Then, you're right. Okay, Claude, I'm going to get off this phone and go read The Witch of Blackbird Pond.
That'll calm me down.
Are you sure you want to read that? I have to. It's for school. Besides, there are no such things as witches, and I'm through being scared. I'm a babysitter. Right. See you in school tomorrow. Right. Goodbye. Christy hung up brusquely. She marched out of the library, got her book, and curled up with it on the living room couch. But she couldn't concentrate. She kept looking outside. The branches of the trees in Watson's yard moved eerily back and forth in front of the street lamps. They looked sort of like hands, gloved hands. One little branch kept tapping on the bay window right by Christy's head. Tap, 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 tap. Christy could imagine all sorts of Halloween-y creatures in Watson's yard.
Cackling witches, howling goblins, silent watching ghouls. Tap, 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 tap. Then Christy heard another sound, or thought she did, a sort of swooshing. It was followed by an angry yowl at the front door. Boo-boo, cried Christy. She was glad he was coming in on his own. She could stop worrying about Mrs. Porter and her garden. Christy ran into the front hall and flung the door open. There was Boo-boo, all right, but he wasn't alone. He was in the black-clothed arms of Morbida Destiny. It was the first time Christy had actually seen her, although she had imagined her vividly after Marianne's encounter. No wonder Karen thought she was a witch. An old, whiskery face with snappish little eyes sat under a mop of frowsy gray hair. And sure enough, she was wearing a long black dress. Yeah, I don't know what frowsy means.
I know.
Watson said Mrs. Porter was just eccentric, but Christy was not at all sure. She gasped when she saw her. This cat, said Morbida Destiny, was on my front porch. I'm sorry, said Christy. He got out by accident. I hope he wasn't bothering you. Morbida Destiny deposited Boo-Boo in an ungraceful heap in Watson's front hall. Boo-Boo tore out of the hall, heading for the laundry room. Wasn't bothering me? Cried Morbida Destiny. Do you know what he was doing on my porch, girlie? Christy shook her head. He was eating a field mouse, that's what. And do you know what's left on my porch now? Christy shook her head again, shuddering. A bit of fur, a bit of tail, and... I'm so sorry, Mrs. Porter, Christy interrupted. I'd like to come over and clean it up, but I'm babysitting here, and I can't leave the...
No need to clean it up. I'll just use it in my potions.
Never you mind. I've taken care of it.
Much better than my voice.
Morbida Destiny reached into her robes.
Not her name.
Pulled out a small paper bag and thrust it at Christy.
Jesus.
These are the remains. You get rid of them. She turned and flapped into the night.
Oh my God.
Oh dear, I'm knackered now.
To get out of here.
Okay, so now I'll prove to you just how smart Christy is. Christy said that right then, when Mrs. Porter shoved that bag into her hands, she was really scared. And she was really disgusted by what was in the bag. But you know what? Her first thought was? It was that if Mrs. Porter were a true witch, she would have kept the bag for herself.
Yeah.
Because she would have used the mouse fur and mouse tail in her spells.
Exactly.
So even though Christy was shaking all over, she was relieved too. She checked on Boo-Boo and found him curled up in a laundry basket in front of the washing machine. He wasn't asleep. He was just resting and staring, which was a little creepy, but he seemed fine.
It's just what cats do.
When Watson got home, Christy told him about Boo Boo and the field mouse and the paper bag. Watson said he would speak to Mrs. Porter the next morning. Then Christy told him about Karen and the freckle spell. I can't tell whether she believes in the spell or whether it's all a big game, but I thought you should know, she said. Thank you, Christy. I appreciate your concern. It seems that she's been talking about witches at school too. Well, I better call Mum, said Christy. She had to wait 15 minutes for her 15 minutes, bloody hell, for her mother to pick her up. And even though Watson was there with her, Christy said that the whole time she kept waiting for the phone to ring again.
Oh my God.
Yes.
How much do you want to bet nothing comes from the phone calls?
Of course not. I don't think they're going to be fighting off our rob their children.
I want Watson to be a secret crime fighter.
So that'd be fun. Chapter 8, Saturday, October 25th. Last night, I sat for Charlotte Johnson. I thought that said Charlton, like Charlton Heston at first. Charlotte Johansson. Oh my God.
I'm a painter.
She's a nice little kid, an only child, and absolutely no problem. In fact, she's kind of timid and shy, which bothers me sometimes. It makes me feel like I have to be brave and protective when I'm around her. And sometimes I don't feel brave at all. Like last night, I was already worried about the phantom phone calls. I mean, after the experiences Christy and Claudia had, who wouldn't be? So when the storm came, I nearly fell apart. Luckily, though, I'm a good babysitter. And when you're a good babysitter, babysitting comes first. So somehow, I managed to keep my head. If that's what Stacy calls keeping her head, I wouldn't want to see her lose it. Damn! Stacy left for the Johansons after an early supper. She was going to be sitting until 10. The last sitter she's allowed, the latest she's allowed out. Oh, God.
I don't know that.
Oh, do you not? Sorry. If you cut through Stacy's backyard and turn right, the Johansson's house is just 2 doors down, a 3-minute walk. If you use the streets and go around the long way, it takes about 10 minutes. Stacy uses a shortcut, even though the night seemed darker than usual and she had to carry a flashlight. Mr. Johansson met her at the front door. His wife is hardly ever around. She's a doctor and spends a lot of time at Stony Brook General Hospital, coming this fall.
Hi, Stacy.
He greeted her.
I'm glad you could come. I'll be meeting Dr. Johansson at the theater. That's what I call my wife, Dr. Johansson. She makes me do
Good
it.
for him.
The number is there by the phone. We're going to see an early movie and then have a bite to eat at Redwick's. A bite to eat.
Press the button. That number is posted too. I know you need to be home by 10. Charlotte has finished her dinner and ought to be in bed by 9:30, okay? Stacy nodded. I guess you know everything else. Stacy nodded again and smiled as Charlotte came into the kitchen. Charlotte and I will have lots of fun, won't we? Yes, replied Charlotte uncertainly. Daddy, do you have to go? Mr. Johansson put his arm around Charlotte. Mommy and I have been looking forward to this movie. It's a treat for us.
What do you mean, Dr. Johansson?
Okay. He calls her Dr. Johansson to his child.
Yeah, I want the child to call her mom Dr. Johansson.
But you'll have a treat when you wake up tomorrow. What? Asked Charlotte excitedly. Mommy will be here. I just want to call her Dr. Johansson now.
Do it.
And she's not working this weekend. That sounds depressing. Your treat is that your mother will be home. Goody. Now, all the time Stacy and Charlotte and Mr. Johansson were talking, Stacy had been noticing something. If the evening had seemed dark on her way over to the Johanssons, it was positively black just 10 minutes later. So it's nighttime.
Yes.
And it was only 6:30. It's October. It has been solidly dark for an hour.
Oh my God.
It seemed rather windy too. Again, it's October. The branches of the trees, already half bare, were being tossed back and forth. Stacy thought she heard thunder in the distance, but she tried not to worry about it. We'd had a lot of late season storms, and most of them didn't last long. Mr. Johansson left a few minutes later, taking an umbrella with him. Stacy and Charlotte stood at the front window and watched his car back slowly down the driveway and turn onto the street. Just as the headlights disappeared from view, the rain started. It came pouring down as if someone had overturned a huge pail of water in the sky. "Close all the windows!" cried Charlotte. "Turn on the lights!" cried Stacy, already spooked.
Stacy and Charlotte ran through the house, closing windows. There weren't many open, and turning on lights. "What do you want to do now?" asked Stacy when they were finished. "Watch TV," replied Charlotte. Crash! A huge clap of thunder sounded, and Charlotte raced to Stacy's side. "I hate thunder." "You too?" asked Stacy. "You know what I used to do during a thunderstorm?" "What?" "Hide in the linen closet. It was the smallest closet in our apartment in New York City. I'd run in, slide under the bottom shelf, and close the door after me, pulling it from the bottom. Sometimes I'd take my doll with me." Charlotte giggled. "Once," she said, "I hid under my bed during a storm. The storm lasted so long I fell asleep, and Mommy and Daddy didn't know where I was. They almost
Jesus.
called the police."
Oof.
Crash! Baroom! More thunder. Lightning flashed and zigzagged through the sky, as lightning does. "Quick, let's put on the TV," said Stacy. She and Charlotte ran into the family room. Charlotte flicked on the TV, and Stacy found the remote control. They started switching from channel to channel. They found an interview, a cooking show, and 2 news programs. "Boring," said Stacy. "Let's put on MTV." MTV. At least we could hear some good music. "What's MTV?" asked Charlotte. "Music television. Why can't I find the channel?"
Oh my God.
Back when it played music.
Yeah.
"Mommy and Daddy
There's
block
probably
things
stuff
I'm
on-
not old enough to watch," said Charlotte.
Yeah.
There's probably some stuff on MTV that that child shouldn't be watching.
I wasn't allowed to watch MTV for a long time.
Really?
Yeah. Like
"Rats," said
when I was
Stacy.
like 10 still, probably I wasn't allowed to watch MTV.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
She went back to the remote control. Flick, flick, flick. "Boring, boring, boring," said Stacy. "Double rats," said Charlotte. Such strong language.
Oh boy.
God, they've got how many channels? Us in England at that time only had 4. You know, I don't understand. Gosh, you know, just put a video on or something.
They probably didn't have like a VCR because that was also super expensive back in the day.
Right. I'll let them off then.
Ugh. What a horrible time to be alive.
I
We
don't
were
know.
alive then.
I liked it. I liked those days.
Simpler.
"Hey," said Stacy, "here's something." She had tuned into channel 47. A large ghostly hand was walking around in a cemetery all by itself. At the top of the screen were the words "Spook Theatre," and under them, "Watch at your own risk."
Yes. I
Oh,
love
this
this.
does
that a real
not
thing?
sound good.
I have no idea, but I'm into it.
Spooky, said Charlotte. She edged closer to Stacy on the couch. "Shall we try it?" she asked Stacy. "It's better than anything else that's on."
Yeah, right.
What's that
Agreed,
cooking show?
Charlotte.
No, Spook Theater.
Spook Theatre. Stacy and Charlotte watched a commercial that showed a can of cleanser dancing around
Yeah.
a bathroom.
What?
Then Spook Theatre appeared on the screen again, and finally the movie began. It started with a nighttime shot of a huge gloomy mansion sitting alone on a rise of land. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. "Kind of like our weather," Charlotte remarked as clap of real thunder sounded, followed by a streak of lightning. The lamps flickered. Charlotte moved as close to Stacy as she could without sitting in her lap. Stacy put her arm around her. They looked at each other and giggled. "I have goosebumps!" exclaimed Charlotte. On the television, the scene changed to the bedroom inside the mansion. It was lit only by 2 candles. A young woman with long, dark hair glided into the room. She was wearing a white dressing gown and carrying another candle. She walked across the room to a set of French doors that opened onto a balcony and began to close
spending with this movie.
Yeah.
The wind from the storm making her gown billow softly around her. Just when she had almost pulled the doors closed, she gasped and let out a small cry. "What?" whispered Charlotte. On the lawn below the woman, Stacy and Charlotte could make out a dark figure. This doesn't sound like a film that they should be watching.
I love it.
It's not a good babysitter.
Lenora!
Wailed the figure.
I've come back from beyond the grave.
Lenora moaned and dropped her candle. Thunder crashed. Then thunder from the real storm outside crashed, even more loudly. For a moment, the room Stacy and Charlotte were in seemed to glow brightly. A second later, it was plunged into darkness. The girls screamed. Charlotte clutched Stacy. Everything had gone off. The lights, the TV, all the electricity. It was so quiet they could hear their own hearts pounding. But worse than the silence was the utter blackness. "Power failure," whispered Stacy. "I want my mommy," murmured Charlotte, "or my daddy. I want Dr. She tried to pull herself together. "There's really nothing to be afraid of," she told Charlotte. "So the electricity went off. So what? The Pilgrims lived their whole lives without electricity. You should be in New York, where there's a power failure. The entire city practically stops running. Did I mention I lived in New York? We lived on the 17th floor of an apartment building, and when the power went out, so did the elevators. Imagine having to walk up 17 flights of stairs just to get home in New York City." "Yuck," said Charlotte. "I'll say now," Stacy went on, feeling a bit better. What we have to do is get some candles." "Like Lenora's?" asked Charlotte. "Well, yes. Where do your parents keep them?" "I don't know. I'm not allowed to light matches." "Do you have any idea?" "Maybe in the chest of drawers in the dining room." "Good. All right. Now we'll just find my flashlight and we can use it to light our way into the dining room." Stacy stood up, holding tightly to Charlotte's hand. They began edging toward the front hall, where Stacy had left her jacket and the flashlight.
She brought a flashlight?
Yeah, because remember she like cut through some yards.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention, I guess.
She has a flashlight.
Okay. Shuffle, 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 yelled Stacy. "What?" "My toe. I walked right into something." Stacy felt around. "A table, I think." "Okay, let's keep going." Oh my God, there's so many noises in this page.
Kaboom!
Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. "Stacy." "What, Charlotte?" "Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle." "I hear something." "What?" "I don't know." Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. "There it is again. Stop moving." Stacy and Charlotte paused, holding their breath and listening. Then Stacy heard it. A creak. "Where is it coming from?" she asked. "Sounds like the basement," whispered Charlotte. "Well, let's make sure the door to the basement is closed." "Where is the door to the basement?" "Right here." Charlotte moved past Stacy, running her hand along the wall. "Yep, it's closed." "Okay, good. Be quiet for a sec." The girls stopped and listened again. Creak, creak, squish, creak, squish, creak, squish.
Squish.
Squish. In the dark, Charlotte's hand found Stacy's. She held on tight. Creak, squish, creak, squish. Something's coming up the stairs, cried Charlotte softly. Shh, was all Stacy said, but she told me later what she was thinking. Oh my gosh, it's the Phantom. He turned off the electricity to distract us, and now he's sneaking into the Johansson's house through the basement. Oh, this book is so boring.
Oh my.
Squish! The sound was closer, and it almost reached the top of the stairs. Stacy was just about to tell Charlotte to start heading for the back door when the creaking stopped. It was followed by a woof. Stacy jumped about a foot, but Charlotte exclaimed, Carrot! Oh, it's just Carrot. He must have come in through the basement again. There's a broken window down there.
She pulled an R.L. Stein.
Who's Carrot? Our schnauzer. He must be sopping. I'll try to find a towel so we can dry him off. And at that moment, the lights came back on. Stacy and Charlotte looked at each other and began to giggle. Then they did then they did dry off the poor rain-drenched Carrot, and they even watched some more of Spook Theater. Outside, the storm died down, and the rest of the evening was peaceful. The phone didn't ring once while Stacy was at the Johanssons, almost like we didn't need to hear about it at all.
I don't know. I kind of enjoyed Spook Theater, but this book is starting to feel a bit like it's stalling for time.
Oh, chapter 9. Saturday, October 25th. This evening I babysat for David Michael. The rest of the Thomases went out for dinner with Watson and Karen and Andrew, but David Michael had to stay at home in bed because he's got a cold. I like babysitting for David Michael. He's almost like my brother. I've known him since he was born. He's usually pretty good, but tonight, since he's sick, he fell asleep very early, and I felt all alone. I couldn't think of anything except prowlers and weird phone calls, and especially the Phantom. The weather was fine, a little breezy, but not stormy, and there were lots of funny shows on TV, but I was still spooked. Spooked isn't the word, Marianne. Marianne was practically out of her mind. She was just sitting quietly on the couch, watching an old I Love Lucy episode, when suddenly she got goose pimples all over her arms. She jumped up, turned down the volume on the TV and listened. Nothing. Not a thing. Even so, she dashed upstairs to check on David Michael. He was lying on his side, breathing noisily, a box of Kleenex next to him. Marianne left the hall light on and went back downstairs. She closed every open closet door and turned on 2 more lights.
Why were all the closet doors open?
That's why I thought she might be closing them, but she's opened them.
Every open closet door. They just, who leaves closet doors like wide open?
Open. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm so confused. Like why would you even bring that up?
that truly makes. I mean, like I know that's a nitpick, but that makes no sense.
Okay, and then she closed off the laundry room in case someone was hiding in there. Finally, she pulled down the Venetian blinds. I'm so sorry, Venetian blinds in the den. I was like, veterinarian?
Venereal blind.
But still, she didn't feel safe, even though Louis, the Thomas's dog, was in the house with her.
What if someone sneaks inside while I'm watching TV, she thought. That was when she decided to rig up the burglar alarms. All 3 of them? What? 3 burglar alarms?
Getting into some Home Alone shit here.
Yeah. She tied an iron to a piece of string. Now, the thing about Marianne's spear is that she may be quiet and she may have a good sense of humor and a good imagination. You'd have to think up the alarms that Marianne rigged in the Thomas's house. Oh my God, so it is Home Alone.
Seriously?
It is Home Alone. Holy shit. Okay. Well, actually, the first one wasn't much in terms of imagination. Burn. It was the alarm Marianne had described at our emergency club meeting the week before. A big stack of pots and pans and cans from the kitchen built up against the inside of the door in the garage. If anyone tried to get in from the garage, like the parents who lived there, the door would push the stack over and it would crash down, alerting Marianne, who would be able to escape out another door and call the police, leaving the children behind. The burglar might even be so startled that he'd turn around and leave. Marianne finished her alarm, sat down in front of the TV again, and immediately decided she ought to rig up the front door too. She was pretty sure a prowler wouldn't come right through the front door, but you can never tell with prowlers. You know.
Those bastards.
She was out of pots, pans, and cans. Though she had to think of something else. She looked at a shelf full of David Michaels toys, you know, briefcases, pen holders, an ink blotter, and her eyes fell on a large bag of marbles, business marbles. Ruth, David Michael is the little brother, but we just, for some reason, he's like a businessman to us. So he's like a little tiny businessman.
He's like really formal.
He's he's like very serious. He's always very serious. So, aha, she said aloud. Marianne took the marbles into the front hall. Then she found a long piece of string. She placed the bag of marbles on a table next to the door and attached the string to the little hole near the opening of the bag. She tied the other end securely to the doorknob. This was Mary Ann's idea. The prowler quietly opens the door, and the string pulls the marbles to the floor. They spill everywhere, not only making a racket to alert Mary Ann, but causing the prowler to slip and fall when he steps inside.
Genius.
Home Alone.
Naturally, as soon as Marianne finished her second alarm, wait. Oh, that was the second one.
Yeah.
Oh, she put
The
marbles
first
in
was
front
the
of the front door.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Pots and pans are in the
I thought she was just going to do the pots and pans.
marbles are in the front door.
Okay. As she said, she needed one for the back door. It was the only way she would feel safe. Then she would have all the doors covered. Marianne had to think a little while before making that last alarm. By then, she was out of marbles as well as pots, pans, and cans.
I'll say she was out of marbles.
What else could make a lot of noise, Marianne thought. Blocks? Maybe. Tinker toys? Nah. Music? Nah. That's what it says. Music could be good and loud. The plans for Marianne's final alarm began to take shape. First, she tiptoed upstairs to Christy's room to borrow her portable stereo. Then she looked through the music collection in the room Sam and Charlie share. She selected one called Pounded Down the Walls by the Slime Kings and slipped it in.
Pounding down the walls. I'm going to make John Walker make that song.
Back downstairs, she sat on the rug in the den to think, the stereo in her lap. How could she arrange for the stereo to turn itself on? She thought some more. How did she turn it on? She pressed the play button.
Oh my God.
Course. Okay, how could she get something else to press the play button? Better yet, how could she get the back door to press the play button?
Oh
In a flash of brilliance, she had the answer. Marianne leaped up and carried the stereo into the kitchen. She sat down on the floor again and examined the skinny rubber-tipped doorstop attached to the bottom of the back door. Perfect. Marianne set the stereo down about 2 feet from the door. She lined up the doorstep with the play button.
How?
What?
Okay, go on. The logistics of this are confusing.
So it's like one of the doorsteps that like stick out from the door. It's like the little pokey thing, and then it has the stopper that it hits.
Oh, okay.
So she lined up the stereo with the doorstop, and then opened the door. The doorstop hit the stereo, and it fell over. But that didn't stop Marianne. I need to shore it up or something, she thought.
She dragged a heavy round footstool in from the den and set it just behind the stereo. She opened the door again. The doorstep hit the play button, and pounding down the walls blared out. Marianne smiled. Satisfied, she hit the stop button, turned the volume up to 10, and went back into the den. She curled up on the couch with her tattered copy of The Secret Garden and began to read.
Chris, what does pounding down the walls sound like?
Just like the rest of the slime group's work.
The slime
just
king.
The slime
slimy.
kings.
I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of it as like burning down the house, but pounding down the wall.
Pounded down the walls.
She was in the middle of
Slime
one of
kings.
her she was in the middle of one of her favorite parts, the one where Mary discovers poor sickly Colin hidden in Misselthwaite Manor, when she heard an ominous creak from the front hall. Actually, Mary Ann told me the next day it was just a little creak, but her head was filled with the dark, shadowy hallways of Misselthwaite, so almost any noise would have sounded ominous. Mary Ann looked up sharply. She jumped to her feet. "Louis," she whispered urgently. "Where is that dog when you need protection?" she asked herself. She tiptoed to the den door and peeped into the hall. There was Louis. He was standing at attention, staring at the front door. The hinges creaked slightly. Louis whined. Not going to do a dog noise. And all of a sudden, the door flew open, pulling the marbles to the floor and scattering them loudly. Louis barked twice, but no one came in. Mary Ann let out a sigh of relief. "It's just the wind, Louis," she said shakily. "Like the wind off the moors in Yorkshire," she added, thinking of her book. "I must not have closed the door all the way." But Louis didn't look convinced. He sat at the screen door, silently begging to be let out to patrol the property. Mary Ann opened it for him and then set to work gathering up the marble. She put them back in the bag, but decided not to rig the alarm again.
She settled for locking the screen door and double locking the inside door. That makes sense, obviously.
Yeah. Should have started with that.
Yeah.
I don't know why
It's
you
almost like
bother with
doors lock.
marbles. Yeah, I just don't get it. Okay. Then she returned to the secret garden. In the story, Mary was having her first conversation with Colin. Suddenly, Mary Ann heard a soft thud. And then I'm just waiting for something to happen. I'm like,
I
come
know.
on, girl.
Yeah. I also like how so far, like, this book has painstakingly detailed like the movie that they're watching and the book that they're
the
reading
books.
in the book. Oh boy.
It's like they're advertising to us all these songs and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. And then to her absolute horror, pounding down the walls blasted on in the kitchen. How's that go again? Pounding down the walls.
Pounding down the walls.
Pounding down the walls. Mary Ann let out a blood-curdling scream as she gazed at the partly open door. She was just about to make a dash for the front door when Louis strolled into the kitchen, sniffing cautiously at the stereo.
Oh my God.
And headed for the water bottle. What? How the hell did the dog get the door open?
Did he?
It's a smart
Did
dog.
that dog just
Seriously.
open 2 doors?
Yeah. Well, the wind opened the first door and the dog opened the second door, but
Seriously, who put
Is anyone
these
else
doors
picturing
on?
Spuds McKenzie?
I am now.
Well, just put some decent locks on these doors.
Well, or close them. Like, close the door. She's like coming up with these Home Alone contraptions, but she's leaving the
She can't
doors
close the door.
like
It's
slightly
like she
ajar.
wants the prowler to come in.
100%.
Like accidentally trip over the marbles or something.
Yeah.
You know, ha! I caught you. It's like, yeah.
If
It's
I
like-
was parents and I got home and the babysitter had like put all my shit everywhere in front of the doors, I'd be like, "We're not calling again. Sorry,
Oh,
you're crazy."
well, sorry, I was just so excited by all that. I've lost where I am now. Louis! Exclaimed Mary Ann in a half gasp, half shriek. She'd forgotten that David Michael had taught Louis how to throw his weight against the doors.
What?
If they weren't latched properly, they opened, which was occasionally useful to Louis. Oh, for God's sake, but just lock them. You've got a prowler.
Lock them.
And you're trying to look after a child.
Also,
It's
how does a
mad.
child teach a dog to do that? Do you just take the dog and like throw him at the door?
Throw him at the door.
Now you do it. Oh my God.
So Mary Ann probably hadn't closed the back door tightly after she tested the music alarm.
You think?
Some babysitter I am. Yeah, that's what we've all been thinking. Scolding herself.
She said her and the audience.
She won't be writing this stuff down in the diary, will she?
Yeah.
Oh no, she'll
left a
be
lot
keeping this one out of the diary for sure. She scolded herself, leaving doors open right and left for anybody to walk through. Barry Add?
What?
Called a voice. Barry Add? What? Where are we gone now? Called a voice. Barry Add. Okay. Marianne looked around to see David Michael standing with his briefcase sleepily on the steps, his old stuffed dog in one hand and his newspaper tucked under his arm.
Oh shit!
Oh, sorry, I can't stop thinking about this kid now walking
No,
around.
it's once you start, like, you can't, like, unsee it from your mind's eye.
He's looking for the time when the stocks and shares might start going on.
Wake me up when the stock bell rings. Oh my god.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. Okay, back to the story. Okay, Barry, can you put the boozic off? Oh, he's
he's
bunged
stuffed
up.
up.
Oh, he's got the cold. Oh,
That's right.
yeah. He asked. I don't like it. It's too loud. He blinked in the bright light of the hall.
I prefer classical.
Yes. What's all those common words?
This is not Chopin.
It sounds too rappish. I don't like it. Oh dear. Right. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, David Michael, cried Marianne. I didn't mean to wake you up. Really? She dashed to the stereo and turned it off. That was an accident. I'm sorry. How are you feeling? Stuffy. And my head hurts. Oh, said Marianne sympathetically. She remembered that Mrs. Thomas had said that David Michael could have half a children's aspirin if he needed it. Do you want some aspirin, she asked. It'll make your head feel better.
Okay, said David Michael weaselly. You go back to bed and I'll be right up. Marianne felt better since the house wasn't so quiet. Still, she let the music keep playing. She brought David Michael the aspirin, and then she sat on his bed and told him a story about a tiny man named Mr. Piebell, who lived in the woods on the 12th floor of an oak tree apartment building with his miniature collie, Louie. David Michael fell asleep with a smile on his lips. Marianne was just closing the door to his room when she heard a tremendous crash downstairs. The tin can burglar alarm. All three of them had gone off. It had gone off, and Marianne was trapped upstairs where there was no escape route. Heart pounding, she tried to figure out what to do. Should she wake David Michael and bring him into Mrs. Thomas's room while she called the police? Should she risk everything and make a dash for the front door, leaving behind David Michael? What if it was just Louie fooling around like he did both times before? Maybe she should call Stacy and try out our code. If only she could remember it.
Oh my god.
Marianne, said an uncertain voice from downstairs. Yikes! It was a man's voice. Marianne shrank into a corner in the hallway. Marianne, it called again, more loudly. The voice sounded vaguely familiar. How does the phantom know my name? Wondered Marianne and the audience. That's when she heard another voice call her.
Isn't she at Christy's house?
Yeah, she's at Christy's house.
One of her fucking brothers?
Oh yeah, it's probably Sam.
Yeah. It's like, why is there a bunch of fucking marbles around my house?
Yeah. Why did you put all of our pots, pans, and cans in front of a door? Then she heard another voice call her. It was Christy. Marianne dared to peep downstairs. Christy, Sam, Charlie, Mrs. Thomas, Watson, Karen, and Andrew were standing in a group at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at her. Oh boy.
Oh, said Marianne, trying to sound nonchalant and realizing the first voice had been Watson's. Gave David Michael some aspirin and got him back to sleep. He woke up with a headache. She trotted down the stairs. Marianne, if you don't mind my asking, said Mrs. Thomas, what are all those cans and things doing by the door? Oh, those, replied Marianne. Those are just... Actually, they were sort of a burglar alarm. I meant to put them away before you got home. Christy began to giggle. Charlie snorted. And my stereo? Asked Christy. Marianne demonstrated the back door alarm, time with the volume turned down. Ingenious, commented Watson. It certainly looks as if David Michael is safe with you, said Mrs. Thomas. Marianne nodded.
Certainly.
She knew she was blushing furiously. You could start another business of your own, said Sam. Marianne's surefire alarm systems. Marianne blushed even more furiously. Come on, said Christy after Mrs. Thomas had paid Marianne. I'll walk you home. And she did.
Riveting.
Should we stop now?
One more.
About to. Okay.
Chapter 10. Boy Trouble.
Yeah.
So far, the Babysitters Club had managed to keep boys and boy trouble pretty much out of the meetings, but not on Monday, these unprofessional bitches, October 27th. At that meeting, we were trying to discuss babysitting problems, but the subject of boys kept coming up instead. Christy started it. Do you know what Alan Gray did to me today? She asked, a look of pure disgust on her face. What made you think of Alan Gray? I asked. We'd been talking about Charlotte Johansson. Everything makes me think about him, said Christy, throwing her hands in the way. He bothers me all the time, every single second of every day. He's not bothering you right now, said Marianne. Yes, he is. He bothers me just by living. Alan Gray is so horrible whenever he's around me that he's all I can think about. So what did he do to you today? Asked Stacy. He hid my math homework, and then when it was time to hand it in, I couldn't find it. He jumped up and said to Mr. Peters, excuse me, but I know where Christy's paper is. Her little brother ate it. Christy wouldn't give him breakfast, and he was starving. I giggled.
What a prank.
Christy turned on me, eyes flashing.
Well, I'm sorry. I think it's kind of funny. You would. Oh, Christy, I said with a laugh. Calm down. But it's not just that, she went on. I could see that Christy was determined to be upset. I think he's getting worse. On Friday, he hid my shoes. On Thursday, he called me a skinny pipsqueak in front of the class. And twice last week, I caught him looking in my desk in the morning. Every day it's something. He never stops. Why don't you talk to Sam about it? Because I don't bloody know how to help you. And I'm sick of hearing about it, suggested Stacey. My own brother? No way! Besides, he'd never understand. He's girl crazy. You should have seen who, or maybe I should say what, he took to the movies last Friday. She's a freshman in high school, and she had spiky yellow hair with green stuff on at the ends and these little lace gloves with the fingertips cut out. Now,
awesome.
What is the point of wearing gloves if...
Sounds like Madonna.
I know. Oh, gosh, couldn't we just go back to those times? And the kids today are wearing crazy hair colours, so, you know, it's kind of similar to today.
And bucket hats.
Can relate.
It all comes back around.
It all comes back.
It does, those copycats of children. Right, so Chrissy stopped talking when she realised that the rest of us were staring at her. What? What is it? She finally asked. Then she noticed Stacey, who was sitting on the bed, gazing sadly down at her hands. Sam took a high school girl to the movies? She asked softly. Yeah,
Stacey.
Oh no, Stacey, I'm sorry. Christy had forgotten all about Stacey's crush on Sam. I'm sure he didn't mean anything. He he is interested in you, really. Then what about that girl? Tamara, you mean? Why did he take her out to the movies? Honestly, I don't know. But he was so weird. Sam will never be serious about her. I'm positive I think he went out with her just to shake Mum up. I thought he liked me, said
Stacey, you're
Stacey.
12.
Oh my God.
How old is Sam?
Oh
I
dear
remember.
God.
I think he's like 14 or 15. I don't remember.
Okay.
Oh,
Is
these
he's
poor
in high
kids.
school?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I do feel sorry for her. Oh man.
I
No,
know.
it's so
It always
sad.
feels so serious when you're so young.
Everything's
Oh.
serious.
Yes. Oh. I thought he liked me, said Stacey. He does, Christy assured her. What do you mean when you say she's weird? Asked Stacey carefully.
Well, the green-tipped hair, for one thing. And the clothes. Her clothes were just weird. Like mine? I asked suspiciously. Oh, no, not at all like yours, said Christy, beginning to blush, backing herself into a corner and digging deeper and deeper and deeper. Nothing like yours. I glanced at Stacey. For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't seem so sophisticated. In fact, she looked a lot like a lost little girl. 2 tears slid slowly down her cheeks. Oh no, please don't cry, exclaimed Stacey. Marianne jumped up from her spot on the floor and sat down next to Stacey. She can't stand for people to be upset. The phone rang, and I answered it. It was Mr. Willis, Bruce, from down the street. I'd babysat for his kids once before. Rumor. Yes, I said. This Saturday? Sure. 8? What does it say? Oh, 8 p.m. Sure. PM's like tiny. I'll be there. I hung up the phone and noted my job in our record book. When I looked up, everyone was glaring at me, even Stacey. It was my turn to find out what I'd done wrong. Okay, what is it? Oh, wait, no. Okay, what is it? I asked. This is confusing.
Yeah, I think you're messing up the
Oh, I did.
voices.
All the eyes, I just thought it was, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Did you just accept that job? Christy demanded, even though it sounded like Christy did, but that's my fault. Sorry. I felt my stomach drop. Yes, I whispered. Yes. But Claudia, you know the rule. Of course I knew. I'd just forgotten, like our stupid code. I'm supposed to check with everyone else first. Christy nodded. I'm free on Saturday. So am I, added Marianne. Oh, I said. I'm not, said Stacey, but I wish you'd asked me. You didn't know I was busy. I'll call him back, I suggested. One of you guys can have the job. No, said Christy. That makes us look disorganized. You keep this job, but I want to know something. How often do you get calls for the club and accept jobs without asking everyone else first? Here's the part of the book where drama happens.
Drama. I pressed the button again. Oh, not often. I mean, almost never. Only once before. That job with the Newtons? All right, twice then. You mean that job with Charlotte? Asked Stacey. Oh, all right, 3 times. Jesus Christ, Claudia. Claudia, exclaimed Christy. I don't do it on purpose, I exploded. I'm not trying to cheat you guys, you know. On my Marianne. The Halloween hop is only 4 days away, and I don't think Trevor even knows my name yet. Wow, said Stacey sympathetically. I didn't realize it was getting that serious. I know. It doesn't sound serious if he doesn't know your actual name. I guess there's no hope now. Yes, there is, Marianne cried suddenly. Where there's time, there's hope. And you've got 4 days. Anything can happen in 4 days. I think you should talk to him, said Christy. I think you should ask him to the dance, said Stacy. I gasped. No way! This isn't the Sadie Hawkins dance. I can't ask a boy to go with me.
Yeah.
In New York, we did it all the time.
Oh my God.
Well, this isn't New York. It's Little Stony Brook, and I'm not asking Trevor Sanborn to the Halloween hop. You're scared, said Stacy. You're right. Maybe Trevor is scared too. You think so? He is sensitive. Before Stacy could answer, the phone rang again.
I'll get it, said Christy meaningfully, reaching for the receiver. Hello? Hi, Mr. Newton. Where are you? At the office? Oh. What? I asked. Christy waved at me to be quiet. Now? We heard her say. But I thought the baby wasn't due for 3 more weeks. Oh. Mm-hmm. Jamie called you? I didn't know he could use the phone either. Yes. Right. Okay, we'll be here. Bye. The baby? Squealed Marianne. Already? I guess so, replied Christy. Mr. Newton said that Jamie just called him at the office and said he wanted him to come home. When Mr. Newton asked if the baby was on the way, Jamie said yes. Oh, I can't believe it, I cried. So Mr. Newton says he'll probably need one of us to stay with Jamie this evening. If he's going to be at the hospital really late, Jamie could just spend the night at our house, I guess. He's done that once before. Mr. Newton will call as soon as he gets home. Gosh, I hope Mrs. Newton's all right, said Stacy. I mean, asking Jamie to call Mr. Newton and the baby coming early and everything. Yeah, you're right, I said. For a moment, we forgot our boy problems. Are babies who are born 3 weeks early usually okay? I asked. The other members of the Babysitters Club shrugged. Don't know, said Marianne. I once heard of a baby who was born 3 months early, said Stacy. He had to stay in the hospital practically forever, but now he's okay. David Michael was 2 weeks early, put in Christy, and he was just a little small. The doctors made him stay in the hospital.
I was born 2 weeks
Because he's so
early.
punctual.
We didn't have to stay in like a little incubation chamber or anything.
Yeah, you were early.
Fine.
3 extra days to gain a few more ounces, but he was fine. He was early because he's punctual.
Yeah.
Came out with a tie on.
Not early.
Came out and immediately said, Mother, pleased to meet you.
It's like the boss baby. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
You know something? Said Marianne. I don't even know whether I was born early or late or on time. Dad hardly ever talks about stuff like that, you know. That was what I did when I was a baby. It's times like this when I wish I had a mother. I bet she talked about these sorts of things. For a moment, nobody was said anything.
Awkward.
Everybody, someone said, look at the time.
I saw Stacy looking sympathetically at Marianne. Stacy once told me she wished she knew her better, but Marianne is still a little shy when she's around Stacy. Then Christy broke the silence as usual and saved the day. You know what? She said to Marianne. You should ask my mother those things, or ask Mrs. Kishi or Mimi. I bet they'd know, since we all grew up together. My mum told me once that when we were really little, around a year old, our parents formed a playgroup for us so we could all be with kids our own age and they could talk about child rearing and stuff. Oh, how exciting. They must have known all 3 of us pretty well. Really? Asked Marianne. Well, I will ask one of them someday. Do it tomorrow. No one.
Well,
Also,
like,
get on with it.
Ask your dad.
Like,
Yeah.
he probably
Oh no, he won't know. He probably wasn't even there.
No, he'll just like go into his
No,
bedroom and
stay-
like hold her mother's old clothes and like weep.
Well, that's
Be like,
true. Yeah.
you think of
I said,
her.
well, how dare you talk about your mother? But no, it could be that, like back in those days, weren't dads like not allowed anywhere near? So like they were quite
Oh yeah, they would have
Funny
been
about
born
it.
in like the late 70s.
Oh,
these
yeah.
kids.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
This book came out in 86.
And
Yes.
dads don't
Yeah,
get
the dad
involved.
would have been smoking
Yeah.
at the bar next door.
Yeah. It's like, call me when she's out.
Oh, the phone jangled. Mr. Newton, cried Christy as she drove. She dove for the receiver. Babysitters Club, she said officially, and I realised I'd forgotten to do that earlier. Another strike
Claudia.
against me. Christy
up.
nodded at us to let us know what it was, Mr. Newton. That it was Mr. Newton on the phone. She watched her face anxiously. It was, she said, looking disappointed. Oh, sure, we understand. Actually, I'm glad the baby is not coming early. It'll be better for him or her to be on time. Right.
But that
No
baby
problem.
keep cooking.
Yeah.
Okay, see you soon.
Keep
Bye.
cooking.
Christy hung up the phone. False alarm! I asked. Yeah. Oh, sorry. You could say that, Christy said. Began to giggle. What's so funny?
Mrs. Newton is fine. She didn't even know Jamie was using the phone.
Oh my God.
You know how Jamie always wants to talk to his dad and waits for him to come home from work like every day? We nodded. Well, today he got tired of waiting and just went ahead and called for his father for a chat.
Genius.
Mrs. Newton had taught him how to dial the number in case there was ever an emergency with the baby or something. Only Mr. Newton didn't know that. Anyway, Jamie told Mr. Newton he wanted him to come home because he always wants him to come home. And Mr. Newton asked if the baby was on the way, and Jamie said yes, because of course, a baby is on the way in his house. And it was just a big mix-up.
Oh.
We all began to laugh. It'll be pretty exciting when the baby really does come, said Marianne. It would be pretty exciting if Trevor asked me to the dance.
Oh.
I added. I sighed loudly. If I had known what was going to happen that very night, I might not have bothered sighing over Trevor. He was nothing compared to the other problem that was about to come up. Bum, 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 bum. And that's it for this time at below grade level. Mostly nothing happened.
Yep.
Boy.
Oh, I want more boy talk. Trevor sounds dreamy.
I
We
forget.
gotta get a scene at this Halloween hop.
I know. I hope that's like the climax, is the Halloween hop.
Claudia better have a good costume.
Yeah. Frankenstein.
Oh, yes. I can't wait to see what she wears. Ruth, thank you for being on the show. What did you think?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, that was great fun. I feel like I missed out on reading these books.
I don't know if you did.
I didn't do much.
I enjoyed them at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do much babysitting at the time when I was younger, so I suppose I wouldn't have been able to connect with these girls. But you know.
Yeah, we forgot to ask you if you had any babysitting experience.
Oh,
We've been
right.
asking our guests that when we read this.
Yeah.
These books.
Okay, I actually babysat kids for a local celebrity. Yes, we have a TV show back in the day. It's not on anymore, but it was quite big in the 80s and 90s. It was called The Bill. And it was a very big British show about our police force. And they did a lot of walking the streets and stopping criminals, and one of the people in it was played PC Stamp, Graham Cole was his name, and I babysat his kids, and the little boy was great. He loved going to bed.
Whoa.
That's cool.
But sorry. Oh no! The little boy was really good at going to sleep, but the little girl was always scared. So I'm kind of relating to this book a little bit. But instead of getting girlfriends round, I think one night I got a boyfriend round, which was probably a bit of a taboo.
Yeah, that seems pretty scandalous.
Yes, but yeah,
that's like number one babysitter rule that you broke.
Yeah, I really did. But
They got top billing on that show.
they had such great technology, and I think they had a PlayStation 1 or something, and I was so like amazed by it. And I remember that. But oh yes. But yeah,
awesome.
that was what I didn't do a lot of babysitting, but that was quite fun. But yes,
you didn't do a lot, but you did like high profile babysitting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was at the TV Times Awards and ceremonies like that. And it was like, she'd be begging me to call him. And I'd be like, he's probably sitting in an audience right now, And also they didn't have mobile phones, so I couldn't really call him. But yeah, so it was awkward. It was very awkward to keep her calm.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he was a really nice man, really lovely family.
Was he like a neighbor? How did you wind up at that gig?
I did some work experience at a primary school. This is so random, and the kids really loved me. I don't have children of my own, but for some reason, other people's kids love me. I'm not sure why. And they all wanted me to babysit, and word got out that I was happy to do some babysitting. And then someone said, "Oh, I've got a friend who needs," and it just happened to be him. So yeah,
nice.
I know it's not the most interesting story.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, that's my claim to fame, I suppose, in a little way, But yeah, not that you would know who this person is, but but maybe someone.
And my
listening.
babysitting story, which was babysitting my cousin once.
Yeah. Yours and Ange combined babysitting story.
Babysitting.
Oh man. Well, that was fun.
Really good fun.
Join us next time for, I think, the last part of Babysitters Club number 2. We'll finish it up. And thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Cactus Rodeo. Follow us on Twitter. You can listen to this and our other shows on all the podcast platforms, et cetera, et cetera. Watch Pop Socket Theater. Anything anyone else has?
No, you plugged all the same things.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. All right. All right. Well, thanks, Ruth, and thanks for listening. We love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Below Grade Level is a Cactus Radio production. You can contact us at podcast@cactusrodeo.com. Subscribe and follow on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, and follow Cactus Rodeo on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for more entertainment and updates.